on the plywood. That's a thing to keep in mind. Yeah. Down Rudolph.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to learn today how to be part of the Red Cross American Red Cross Home Fire Preparedness Campaign. I'm going to talk a little bit about why this campaign is coming into effect, and then I'm going to kick it over to Rudy and Sarah, who will be teaching this position-specific trainings for the program. So. The biggest disaster that faces families nationwide in the United States are home fires. They displace more families on average than any other disaster nationwide. So the Red Cross has implemented a national home fire preparedness campaign to try and reduce home fire deaths and injuries by 25% across the country over the next 5 years. How are we doing that? Well, we know that smoke alarms cut the risk of injury and death in half. When they're present in homes. So we are going into people's homes, we are physically installing the smoke alarms, as well as providing them education on home fire safety, as well as other disasters such as earthquakes, and how to make a kit, get a plan, and be informed. So without further ado, I will start off with Ms. Sarah Jane Brewer, who is the disaster preparedness specialist for the Los Angeles region. So Sarah, take it away.
Thank you, John. So I'd like to thank everybody who is joining us here today and who might be watching this recording later for giving your time to potentially save somebody's life. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to be talking about the educator portion and the documenter portion. So these two roles can be assumed by one person. And basically the role of the educator is to talk to the residents about making a fire escape plan, what to do in case there's an earthquake or a home fire, and talking to the residents about their smoke detectors as well. And then the role of the documenter is to fill out the form that shows what we did in the home. And so like John said, we have a big goal with this program to reduce home fire deaths by 25%. So in order to show what we're doing and where we're doing it, we need to ensure that we are accurately reporting each visit. So I'm going to get started with the educator portion. So when you deploy and go into homes, you're going to be given an educator packet that looks like this. And basically, as an educator, you're going to go through this packet and explain each of the pieces to the residents. So starting with this bag, this is what we call a document bag. And on the front is a checklist of important documents. And what we recommend for everybody to do is to make copies of these important documents, put them inside of this bag and stick it in the freezer. That way it will actually withstand most earthquakes and fires. And so if something does happen and perhaps a home fire burnt up your records, first responders will be able to identify that you live there. If FEMA or the American Red Cross are giving you any assistance, then they need to know that you live there. We might be able to replace medications. So it's important to have prescriptions and stuff inside of these bags. So inside of your documenter kit, and these are all things that you will leave with the resident, including this bag. So first we have the home fire safety checklist. So the home fire safety checklist basically goes over the most common causes of home fires and how to prevent them. Most home fires do start in the kitchen, so we recommend that people keep an eye on what they're cooking if they have an open flame in the kitchen. This is especially important, you guys living out here in Mammoth Lakes, in Bridgeport, Colville, Walker, where it gets really cold and people have a lot of heaters and fireplaces because you need it. So it's important to know to keep those heat sources about 3 feet away from anything that's flammable, like magazines, old rags, anything like that. Smoking safety, never smoke in bed. Smoking in bed is actually the leading cause of home fire fatalities. So, yeah, leading cause of home fire fatality. So if you smoke or if you know someone who smokes, let them know that so that if they do smoke, at least they're not smoking in bed. Electrical and appliance safety. Make sure that large and small appliances are plugged directly into wall outlets and not on an outlet strip, because appliances generate a lot of electric current, and if it's plugged into an outlet strip, it can overload it and cause a fire. I have melted my own outlet strip doing this, so I can attest that this is true. So make sure that you're plugging them directly into the wall. Children playing, make sure that matches, lighters, any kind of heat sources like that are kept away from kids. We can't watch our kids constantly, and they can get into things without, whenever you're not looking, so make sure that they absolutely don't have access to things like that. And finally, smoke alarms. So with this program, if people have working smoke alarms that are less than 5 years old, then we'll just test those smoke alarms, and if they're working, we'll leave them there. But we do want to let people know that if they're leaving the smoke alarms in there, that they need to test them once a month and change the batteries every single year and replace the entire unit every 10 years. So it takes about 2 minutes to get out of a home fire safely. So what we recommend is that you make a fire escape plan and then practice that plan and practice getting out in 2 minutes or less. And you can actually write down on this home fire safety checklist how long it took you to do your fire escape drill. So with that, let's talk about the plan that the residents are going to make. So this is a pretty nifty little tool. This is a laminated home fire escape board, and included in the packet is also a dry erase marker and a magnet. So you can actually stick this on the fridge. And all of these materials are also in English and in Spanish. So we want the resident to draw a diagram of their house on here with 2 exit routes out of every room in the house. And the reason you want 2 is because one could be blocked by the fire or something fallen over. So you want to have an alternate exit identified already, so you're not panicking when it comes time to evacuate if you need to. So this plan should be shared with everybody. We want you to stick it on the fridge. We want everybody in the family to know what the plan is and how to escape. There should also be an outside meeting place so that when each member of the family does exit the home safely, they know where to meet up so that you know who's gotten out safely and who has not. For home fires, the biggest message that we want to convey is get out, stay out, and call 911. A lot of people want to save their pets or save photo albums. Maybe they got out safely, but they don't see their son there or something, so they run back inside, but the son is actually on the other side of the house. And it has happened that, you know, somebody's run back in thinking a family member needs to be saved, and unfortunately there was a fatality. So it's important to know everybody needs to get out, stay out, and know where the meeting spot is so that when first responders do come, you can tell them, hey, I think that my son is still in there, this is his bedroom, or something like that. So you can also write down where the meeting place is outside on this board. And there's another place to write down how long it took you to do your home fire escape drill. So maybe somebody makes this plan and it's a great plan, it totally works for everybody, but 2 years down the line, maybe they forgot about it, and it comes time to use the plan, they might not remember it. So it's important to stress that they do practice. And with home fires, if there is a home fire, make sure people know to crawl low and smoke, because we actually see more injuries from smoke inhalation than from contact with flames. So make sure people know to go low and smoke, and check doorways for heat with the back of your hand. Check the doorknob last. If you don't detect any heat, open it slowly. Check the other side. If you don't see anything that's dangerous, then it's okay to continue. If you detect any heat or you see fire smoke on the other side, close the door and use your alternate exit. Okay, so that is the home fire escape plan. You also want to talk to the residents about the smoke detectors that we will be installed, or that you will be installing, I should say. So the alarms that we're going to install are 10-year lithium-ion smoke alarms. That means that they are good for 10 years. You can test them if you want. You don't have to, but they will be good for 10 years. On the alarms is a test button and a silence button. So if there is a false alarm, you can always silence it, and you can still test them once a month. And this smoke alarm care and maintenance sheet is basically instructions for taking care of the smoke alarms. So there is a note on where to install smoke alarms. So even though we're installing them, there's some justification for the places that we choose to install them. We don't want people to install them in kitchens, attics, basements, things like that, because that can lead to false alarms. And we want to install them strategically inside and outside of living areas so that if people are sleeping and the smoke alarm goes off, then the alarm is near the bedroom and people are woken up. So we also recommend that you clean them about once a month because the dust can collect, and as my partner Rudy was talking about earlier, if it collects too much dust, then it messes with the sensors and it might not detect the smoke in time, so it's important to dust them and clean them. You can still test them. There is information for changing the battery in case they already have smoke alarms in their house and we're not installing the 10-year. And there's another note about the silence button.
Okay, and one of the contractors I talked to said that really they don't, they're not good for really 10 years. And so with the recommendation for checking them twice a year, I think it really set the clocks forward back.
Yes.
I mean, do you have a sense that they really do last 10 years? Because he said no.
Well, as far as we know, they do last for 10 years. You know, that's what we've been told. We've only been doing this program for about 3 years. So we haven't, the program hasn't been around for 10 years for us to know.
And for the alarm, the light, there's 10 years for the battery for the smoke alarm. So how constantly it's beeping and going off and on, that's, the lifespan of the smoke alarm reduces.
Mm-hmm.
So it would start beeping at some point before the time frame is up.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So we shouldn't tell people eventually that beeping will stop.
No, if it's beeping, then you need to change the battery.
Yeah,
And I'm glad actually that you brought that up about the twice a year when the clocks change.
yeah.
So when the clocks change twice a year, that's a good opportunity to check your emergency kit to see if your supplies have expired and to replace them. It's a good time to practice your emergency plans and also a good time to check your smoke detectors. So when the clocks change, just kind of gather everybody around and knock out all of those emergency preparedness drills. Thank you so much for that. And the last piece of information that you are going to share with the residents is the earthquake safety checklist. So if an earthquake does happen, we want people to drop, cover, and hold on underneath a sturdy piece of furniture. So you're going to drop underneath something, cover your head and your neck, and hold onto the piece of furniture so that when it moves, you move with it. A lot of people still think that you need to run for the doorway or the triangle of life, something like that, but those are myths. Those aren't really viable in an earthquake. If you can't get underneath a sturdy piece of furniture, then you want to find a wall, something where nothing can fall on you. Maybe I would go for this wall right here and crouch against the wall and cover your head and your neck. Also, if you can, go into the bedrooms with the residents and check to see if there is anything hanging over the headboard of the bed, something like a big portrait, or, well, I guess people don't really have portraits in their bedrooms nowadays, but maybe a big mirror or a lamp or something, because if there is an earthquake and they're in bed, that could fall on their head and potentially be fatal. So make sure that they know to move the bed or move that object. And that way, if an earthquake does happen when you're in bed, you can just stay in bed and cover your head and neck with a pillow. So there are ways to prepare for earthquakes as well. You can find those safe locations in each room, plan out where you would go in case there was an earthquake and you were in that room. You can also bolt really heavy pieces of furniture, bookcases, water heaters, TVs, things like that to the wall so that they will stay there in an earthquake and not, fall over, hurt somebody, or block an exit. So what should I do during an earthquake? Stay indoors until the shaking stops. Don't try to run outside. If an earthquake does happen and it's really severe, which we are honestly expecting like a really big earthquake within the next 30 years, we kind of have all the stars are aligning for something like that to happen. So if an earthquake does happen, the outside parts of the buildings like porches and roofs and things like that are going to fall first. So if somebody's running outside during an earthquake, if they manage to stay upright, then they could potentially be hurt by those pieces of the building that are falling. So it's important to remind people to stay inside until the shaking stops. And there could be aftershocks right after the initial earthquake. So stay in that safe spot where you're dropping, covering your head and your neck and holding on. There's also a place on here to write down your family plan. So you want to have that meeting spot that's outside of the house that you talked about with your fire escape plan, and another meeting spot outside of the neighborhood in case people are away from the home when the earthquake happens, or there's another big emergency and the roads are blocked. The members of the family know where they can meet up. There's also a spot to write down the safe spots in each room. And we also recommend that you have an out-of-state contact. After a big emergency, people are going to be calling across town, and it'll actually be easier to call somebody who lives outside of the state. So make sure everybody knows who that out-of-state contact is. Write that down here. In addition to a regular emergency kit that has food, water, first aid kit, medications, tools, extra clothing, things like that, we also recommend that you have a smaller bag that just has an extra pair of sturdy shoes, eyeglasses, and a flashlight, and you actually tie that to the bed. That way, if an earthquake happens and you're in bed, that bag will stay with the bed if it moves, and then you can put your shoes on and step on the debris, because we found that after Northridge,
Right.
A lot of people-
ER in Thousand Oaks after Northridge. and that was-
Exactly.
The light at the bedside when people came in, Thousand Oaks. cut them with heat. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Is that on here?
It's not on here.
It should be on here.
It should be on here. Yeah, this is really basic stuff, but I like to throw in as much other emergency preparedness information as I can. Usually the appointments take about 20 minutes, depending on how many smoke alarms the installer needs to take. So in my experience as an educator and a documenter, I've had time to do the paperwork, go over the basic safety checklist and the plan, and still have extra time to talk about emergency preparedness. So you guys are CERT, you guys are trained in this kind of stuff. Feel free, if there's extra time while the installer is doing those kinds of things, to talk about more emergency preparedness. So that's everything that you will leave with the resident. There are also website resources so they can hopefully do more research about preparing for emergencies, because you're absolutely right. That's just the tip of the iceberg as far as preparing for emergencies goes. So that is the educator portion. Are there any questions on that piece? Okay, so next we're going to talk about the documenter portion. And you guys all have this in front of you. This is the home visit record. It doesn't say home visit record on it. We call it that internally. It says service acknowledgement form on the top. Right. So this form, the most important thing for this is to write everything clearly and legibly, and to fill out every single portion, even if you're repeating some of the information and it gets a little tedious, like, oh, they know that this is the zip code, I'm not going to keep writing it down. Sometimes these papers get mixed up a little bit, so it's important to have every piece of information on here. So for the resident name, you're going to write the name of the person that you're speaking to, the resident. If they speak English or Spanish or another language, write that down. The address, and if they have an apartment number or a half, write that down as well. The city and the zip code. Again, even if it gets repetitive, please put that into every form that you fill out. You can put down a phone number and an email for the resident. If they're nervous about giving you their contact information, you can let them know that we only use their contact information if there's a question that we have on the form and we want to follow up with them. We're not going to solicit them. We're not going to send them anything. We're not going to sell their information. This is absolutely just in case we need to get in contact with them about this appointment. You can also write down the date of the installation and the time that you installed the alarms. So for the initial assessment upon visit, you want to write down how many people live there. If there are any youth ages 17 and under, write down that number. Any adults 65 and older, write down that number as well. If it's 0 for any of those numbers, don't leave it blank, write down 0. If anybody has a disability or an access or a functional need, please write down that number. You might use an updated form that also asks if there are any military members or veterans that live in the home. So you would write down that number as well. And then you're going to ask them how many existing smoke alarms the home has and how many of those are working. Now, we do have alarms available for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. I think that they buzz and have a light on them. So if they need that alarm, we're not going to leave any of those alarms here, are we? Okay, so we have one, but if they need another one, then we can follow up with them and install that as well. So if that alarm is needed, then you're going to circle yes. If not, you're going to circle no. And then once you install the alarms and the educator portion is completed, then you can fill out the services provided section. So write down how many alarms we installed. We no longer install the 9-volt smoke alarm, so you can write 0 for there. We no longer replace batteries, so please write 0 there. And if you do install the bedside alarm, then you can write down that number there. So the next 3 questions, it's really important that you circle yes for all of them. If you leave them blank, then we're going to assume that the educator did not do their portion, and it's really important that we capture that information. So did the residents create a fire escape plan? We want to see yes circled. Did the residents review the home fire safety checklist? We want to circle yes. Did the residents learn about a local hazard? We want to circle yes and write down earthquake in the line. If anything happened where maybe the resident didn't want you to make a plan with them or didn't want to listen to the educator portion, on the back there will actually be a section for notes. So if there's anything about the appointment that was a little bit weird for some reason or something that you think that national headquarters should know about, you can fill out the notes on the back side and we will record them, and those all go to our national database. So after we put in these forms, or after we receive these forms, we put them into an online database, and that's just so that national knows what we're doing, basically. How many alarms are we installing? How many people are we helping? If we're helping people that have access and functional needs or people who are military or veterans, then those are target populations that we want to provide services to. So that's why it's important to capture those numbers. If people are nervous about maybe they're not up to code, or maybe there's 10 people living in a 2-bedroom house or something like that, you can let them know, again, that we don't share this information with anybody. While we partner with fire and sheriff, we don't share this information with them. This is completely confidential, and they're not going to have somebody knocking on their door trying to bring them to code or anything like that. If you are a partner organization, such as you're with CERT or Rotary or Lions Club, then you can write down local partner where it says coalition partners. And don't write anything down for the administrative section. That's when we put these into our online database. We know which ones we finished. So this bottom section, it's actually ideal to have this part complete first, because technically we need their authorization before the installer can start installing the smoke alarms. So if you can write down your name, your signature, and the date, and write down their name and the date, so all they have to do is sign. That way they can give their signature and the installer can start installing the smoke alarms. If they want to read this, if they want to make a copy of it so they know what they're signing, that's absolutely fine. This basically just says that they verify they are a resident of the home, they give us authorization to install the smoke alarms, and once we install them, it is their responsibility to test and maintain those smoke alarms. Did you want to add anything, Rudy?
Yes, for the services provided, you want to make sure you speak to the installer, because he is the one that's testing the smoke alarms. He is the one that's going to be, checking how many pre-existing smoke alarms there were. So for the service provided, you do want to speak to your installer for some of those questions, and the rest to your educator.
Yeah, exactly. And usually the way the appointment goes is you will knock on the door. I'm pretty sure we're going to be getting appointments for all of them, so they'll know we're coming. Let them know who you are and what we're doing. Always be very friendly and polite. You guys are all really polite. I've enjoyed speaking with you today, so I'm sure that won't be a problem at all. And then the installer will probably go around the house to look for smoke alarms, start testing them, and installing the ones that need to be tested, while the educator and the documenter talk to the resident about the plan and filling out the worksheet. So initially, two or three of the team members will go in, you'll get the signature, and then the installer can start installing the smoke detectors. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Will both the educators and the installers have ID from Red Cross to say who we are, rather than just greeting them and saying, "Hi, I'm Barbara, this is Greg"? No, because they might be, even though I have an appointment,
Right.
they might be a little leery of who's coming to the front door,
Yes.
because they could get robbed, or you could,
Mhm.
somebody could have tied us up and put us in the bushes and said, "I'm the one coming to install your."
That could definitely happen, and that's a really good point. We are going to give you T-shirts that say Red Cross Home Fire Campaign. Are you prepared? Once somebody becomes a full Red Cross volunteer and they go through our orientation and our training, then we do give them an ID with their picture on it. But if you're just participating with us for this campaign, we'll give you a T-shirt that identifies that you are with the Red Cross.
Is it okay if we as CERT members wear our CERT ID?
Absolutely.
Because it has our picture
Absolutely.
on it.
We would definitely recommend that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the shirts we're going to be providing, they're all going to be the same, so it's not going to be like different shirts.
Right.
So all of the shirts are going to be standard, the same shirts.
Are there any other questions about the documenter piece, the educator piece?
No, you're probably gonna talk about when we don't put an alarm up. I mean, if I'm thinking of my own house, and
Mhm.
I know I've got 2, but I should have 5, do I bypass ones that are already installed
Mm-hmm.
with batteries and function?
Well, I think it's time for me to hand it over to my partner, Rudy. You want to talk about the installer portion?
Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and speak over the installation portion.
That's very good, sir.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it.
She's really good. Are we giving out these packets?
They have a copy of,
Okay.
do you guys have a copy of the installer packet as well? I think Kathy emailed that to everybody.
Like, I didn't print anything from the
I
capital.
don't see an installer packet.
So earlier I emailed Kathy the guide for the documenter, the educator, and the installer. So if you got that email from her, then you can review what we talked about today.
I just need to download it. Document report. I don't have two of these things.
The document.
Installer checklist.
The checklist is also good, so we can just go off of the checklist for now. Or, we have some copies of the installer guide that we can pass out as well. Thank you, Melissa.
That's a great picture.
Look at the look on the kid's face. What is he doing? Is he gonna fall on me?
Okay, so are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so for the installing portion, every installer is going to be receiving 2 bags. One bag will be the installation kit, and then the other bag is the other bag that's going to contain the whole entire smoke alarms. So we are going to be using these smoke alarms for kitties. As we mentioned earlier, these come with a 10-year ion battery. So the smoke alarms here don't have a 9-volt battery, so you cannot remove the battery whatsoever. So these smoke alarms were designed because a lot of residents will hear them beeping and will remove the batteries, and it was just useless. So now these batteries come inserted inside the smoke alarm, so you can't remove the battery out. So I'm gonna go ahead and speak to you what's inside the installer backpack, and I'm gonna go ahead and take out those items. So each installer backpack, there is a drill. And this drill, when you receive it, so when you receive this drill, it's going to be locked, so you're not going to be able to use it. We had a lot of people like, why is my drill not working? And it was because it's locked. So this yellow mechanism right here, when you push it, you can either reverse it or you can insert the screw. So it depends which area you push it, it inserts the screw. Inside the backpack, there's also a trash bag. A trash bag is really important because you will have a lot of trash. And the trash you'll be basically having are going to be empty boxes from the smoke alarms or either old pre-existing smoke alarms. So we want to go ahead and collect all of that smoke alarms and put them inside of these trash bags.
Rudy, what if somebody says they have cardboard, recycling, can they recycle it for you? Do you want proof and to keep that in the trash bag?
We don't need that proof.
Yeah, we don't need
And I
that.
highly recommend recycling.
Well, me too,
Every time.
because I'm just wondering if someone offers, is it okay to give?
Oh, absolutely,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Go ahead.
absolutely.
We also have some angel towels. So you can use them to wipe stuff
I think
during because they're red. Yes. There are also some wipings here. So sometimes when you touch alarms are up in the ceiling, they're usually full with dust or oil, depending where they are. So sometimes they become very filthy, and you don't want to touch your hands. I mean, if you get any of that dust on your hands, you can always grab a baby wipe and wipe it yourself. Another reason we have baby wipes inside here is when we're installing, sometimes when we touch the ceiling, we leave our fingerprints on top of the ceiling, and most ceilings are white. So we don't want to leave any hand marks on top of the ceiling. So we want to go ahead and grab a baby towel, and then make sure you clean up the ceiling, making sure, it's not dirty, there's no fingerprints up there. You can also clean your hands. Some houses also come with a popcorn texture. So if you know what popcorn texture is, it's like some little, how can I say it? It's
cottage cheese.
yeah, like cottage cheese, basically cottage cheese on top of the ceiling. So a lot of that ends up falling when you're drilling on top of that. So if it falls on the floor, or for example, if there's any drywall dust here, as you can see, there's some white drywall dust there. We also have a dustpan and a broom that you can utilize to clean up that debris, because we don't want to go ahead and leave any trash on the floor. We don't want to cause an inconvenience. We want to go ahead and basically get there and come out as if it was already there. We don't want to make any mess. We also have a basic first aid kit, so in case you cut yourself, there is bandages inside here.
There's some tweezers, there's some cooling pads, some gloves, and some other basic first aid kit utensils. And then you also get this bag. In this bag, we also have some gloves that you can utilize. So in case you don't want to touch the smoke alarms because they're really dirty, you can go ahead and use some pair of gloves.
One size fits most.
Yeah.
One size fits most.
We have a few different kinds. We have these elastic ones that have the rubber on one side, and we also have those leather ones. So we have a few different kinds.
What comes inside also the installer bag is an ice pick, and you really want to be careful with ice pick, and you want to make sure that it's on top of the wine cap, because the reason if you don't place it correctly inside your backpack, it has happened to me previously that I don't place it correctly, so it pokes out. So when it's poking out and I whip it to put it on my shoulder, you're gonna end up getting poked. So it's really important that you put the wine cap on the ice pick and it's parallel to the backpack, so like that it's not floating around. We also come with a little hammer, so in case you need to hammer anything.
My husband calls that a chick hammer.
The chick
Oh.
hammer.
Chick hammer when I met him.
So chick hammer. So we have a hammer, so in case you need to hammer anything, you can go ahead and use it. What comes in also the backpack is a Sharpie marker, and it's really important that you keep the Sharpie with you because we want to go ahead and write the date on the smoke alarm when it was installed. So the Sharpie, you always want to keep it on you, and then so like that you can write the date behind the smoke alarm.
Does it matter where we write it on?
So back here in the back, there's a line. It says installation date. You can
Okay.
write it. You write the date there,
Okay.
and also it comes here. It says date of install. So like that, if residents don't really know when it was installed, instead of taking it off and looking, they can at least see it from the side.
We use label makers for ours.
Oh, very nice.
And we have it on the side.
Mhm.
But we also have it on the wall just above each one.
Oh, that's good. I love label
We can
makers.
visibly see it.
Perfect.
And it also comes with a bag of drywall screws. So the smoke alarm here comes with some existing screws, but these screws take longer, and these are not really meant for drywall. So it's really important to use these screws, and then when you start using these you're gonna find it that they're much easier to use than the ones that come with the smoke alarms. So there's also some houses that have a plaster ceiling, which mainly means that plaster is much thicker than drywall. So if you ever have to drill something, go ahead and open this little box, and then there's the drill bits here that you can utilize to make a hole. So depending how big you need the hole, you can utilize it. But mainly you want to use 1/8 or one that it's kind of the same size as the drywall screw. You don't want to make a bigger hole because then you're just making a bigger hole and more work. So let's say you go ahead and want to uninstall a smoke alarm and you don't have the proper head. So this one is a crosshead, and we also have
Screwdriver?
the screwdriver. Yes, the screwdriver. The screwdriver that you can take the heads out, and it has a flat headed on it. So you can go ahead and use whichever one you need. Usually some have flathead and some are cross, so you can remove this one and you can just go ahead and insert it inside the drill to remove that screw. And it also comes with a tape measure. We don't really utilize a lot of tape measure unless you're really OCD of the size you really want to put it on. So, I'm gonna tell you where's the best locations to install a smoke alarm and what are easy ways that you can, install smoke alarms. And also, if you ever need to remove something, there's also pliers, so you can go ahead and remove anything that's pre-existing there. So let's say somebody put a nail there and you can't really get it off, you can go ahead and just pull it out. So this is all that comes inside the installer backpacks, and also comes with some goggles. You really want to use goggles when there's popcorn textures because a lot of that debris is really sensitive, so it just falls off really fast. So you want to go ahead and put these on so that you can protect your eyes. And let's say your drill runs out of battery. What do? The installer bag actually comes with a charger at this front pocket here. That if in case your drill runs out of battery, you can always charge it back up. So I'll go ahead and put all this stuff back in.
How many bags are you going to be leaving with each of the counties? Is it just like one installation bag and we pick it up when we're going to do the install? Or how are we?
So each team has installed backpack. So depending how many amount of people we have that during the installation day, each team gets an install bag, and that's where we get a bag full with alarms. Did that answer your question?
Well, since you guys are going to be leaving a lot of the stuff with us after you guys leave, will we have installation bags
We'll
here?
see what the number of appointments look like and how many left over we have. We can discuss that maybe in the next couple of days.
Greg, you're gonna be orienting and install.
You'll orient all the install.
I know, but I wanna know how to install.
No problem.
Okay. Well, good.
So I'm gonna go ahead and teach you how to install now, but let me go first, put all of this equipment away. And we wanna put everything back nicely, because once you start putting everything inside there, it just makes, a big mess inside the backpack. And let's say we have another campaign, there's people that takes a lot of time to put everything back together. So let's try to have everything organized back inside the backpack.
Someone else to put the backpacks back together.
Will the installers and educators be in pairs? The buddy system?
Yes, but most likely the educator is going to stay with the resident and the installer might be by themselves to do the install.
Going to the person's house, always these years.
Absolutely, it's very
So it's safe
important.
for both of us.
Exactly,
no
it's
matter what.
imperative that you never go into a house alone, that you're always with your partner.
And also, we kind of create a plan of which area you're gonna cover. So let's say something does happen, at least we will know what area
Oh,
you're
that's
gonna
good.
be in.
Okay.
So depending on the logistics portion and all the paperwork and everything, we kind of make a route, which area we're gonna be targeting. And let's say team 3 is gonna be heading to a different street. So you always wanna check in with base camp. So what we do is we call base camp where you pick up all the materials. So let's say all of the teams are meeting here. We're gonna give you the backpacks to install kits, paperwork, and everything. So what happens is that we assign you what street you're gonna be going to. You go out to that street, and then once you're out there and you have any questions or concerns, we have a clipboard that contains an emergency contact number that you can contact back at base camp. And in case something happens, you're gonna take longer at one location, you always want to check up with base camp and notify them, hey, I'm running late, so I'm in this property, so like that we can be aware of where your location is.
Very good.
So now we're gonna go ahead and install. So the couple items that I need for installed is either an ice pick, the smoke alarm, drywall screws, a Sharpie, and the drill. So these are basic some utensils that I need in order to install. We want to go ahead and install in every bedroom and hallway. Like Sarah was mentioning earlier, we don't want to install inside a garage We don't want to install inside the closet or attic. We want to go ahead and install in every location where somebody is sleeping. So basically a sleeping area. So we get a lot of questions. Where is the best location to install a smoke alarm? Depending on the layout on the house, you want to use good judgment to know where you want to install. So let's say this is the bedroom door. So inside here is the bedroom. So if I open this door up, outside here is the hallway. So a best location to install a smoke alarm will be either right in the middle here on the door, or a couple, 2-3 feet away from the door. So you don't really want to keep it too close to the wall and to the ceiling, because then oxygen air doesn't really flow through there, and most of the air here from the door is going to go straight up here to the ceiling. You might have run into some issues where there's an air conditioner vent. Then what do you do in that location? So then you want to go ahead and install a little bit further away from the air conditioner vent, like that none of the air is blowing against the smoke alarm, which will not make it beep in case there's a fire. We also, as someone was mentioning earlier, how do you know the difference between a hardwired smoke alarm and a battery smoke alarm? Each smoke alarm, we're going to go ahead and test them. And if they're beeping, basically it means they're working. But we also want to make sure when they were built. So back here it says 2016, April 9. If you want to pass it around. So if the smoke alarm is 5 years old older, we want to go ahead and replace that because it's kind of like a cell phone. Imagine it like a cell phone. A cell phone from 2000, it's not going to be working in 2016 now because, it's going to be considered as antique. The same thing as a smoke alarm. The longer it's been up there, the longer it's been collecting dust and the sensors are not going to be working properly. So that's why you want to go ahead and remove it and replace it. So let's say there's a hardwired smoke alarm. What do? Once you go ahead and twist it out and you see some wires, we're not professional electricians, so we do not want to touch anything that's wired. So we want to go ahead and put it back on, twist it. And there you speak to the resident, hey, is it okay if I put another smoke alarm, a battery smoke alarm next to the existing smoke alarm? So, due to the fact that we can't remove this smoke alarm, at least you have a battery powered smoke alarm that will take over in case the old smoke alarm doesn't go through. So that's an option we give out to the residents. And usually their answer is yes. So we go ahead and we install one almost next to it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and install. And then afterwards, I'm going to go ahead and answer any questions. The best way to install a smoke alarm on a sidewall is grabbing your screw. You want to go ahead and insert it midway. You want to make sure it has a little gap. And the reason for that is you want to go ahead and have the ring and it's just going to sit. And like that, you don't have to worry about holding it so much or try holding it while you're putting the screw in. So at least, it's sitting there. And then you push it to the small hole and you just tighten it up. As soon as it's tightened up, it's not going to move. It's going to be solid. After that, you go ahead and grab the other screw. You go ahead and put it through the big hole. After it's midway, you want to push it into the small hole. And then you want to go ahead and tighten it. And from there, it's not going to move whatsoever. The same process you do to the sidewall, you want to do to the ceiling. You want to go ahead and put the screw first. Leave it as a gap midway. Put the ring and then twist it to a small hole and tighten it up. And after that, it's going to be solid. It's not going to move. And then from there, you go ahead and do the same process on the opposite side. For demo purposes, I'm going to go ahead and teach you how a smoke alarm is going to be activated. So right now, if I push it, it says test to hold. It's not going to work because it hasn't been activated just yet. What's today's date?
The 31st.
31st. So then before you install, and before you put the smoke alarm into the ring, you want to write today's date. The 0 8/31/16. You want to make sure you put in the ring properly. And then once you hear the beep, it means that the smoke alarm has been activated. If it's not placed correctly in the ring and you don't hear the beep, it means it's not gonna work.
So the ring activates.
The ring activates it. So right now, if I want to test it, it's not placed properly, so it's not gonna beep. So once you twist it, you're gonna hear a beep. So that means, hey, I'm activated. So from this day, it means I have 10 years. The lifespan on the smoke alarm reduces of how constantly it starts beeping. So then afterwards, when it did that beep, you want to press and hold to test them out. What I'd like to do is, since we're going to be going into residents' homes early in the morning, this is a speaker here. You want to put your fingers over the speaker and test it out. Because you don't want to make any noise, cause an inconvenience. So it reduces some of the noise compared by removing my fingers. It's louder.
My dog hates this.
And then from there, it's active and it's ready to go. Also with the smoke alarm, it comes with a guide user book. You want to go ahead and leave this with the residents because it gives them additional information, what model smoke alarm they have, where to install it, and just some facts and a lot of information. So you want to go ahead and leave a guidebook with the residents. So each smoke alarm, remember, in every hallway and every bedroom. If they want one in the living room, because somebody sleeps there, then we go ahead and install one in the living room. But we don't want to install one in the kitchen or in the bathroom. And let's say, again, let's use this as an example. Let's say this is the hallway and this is the bathroom door. And you install a smoke alarm here. It's not, once someone gets out of the shower, the vapor of the steam inside the bathroom, then it's gonna mess up with the mechanism of the smoke alarm. It's gonna rust them out, or it's gonna also cause it to beep and give false alarms. So you wanna go ahead and keep away from any bathrooms.
What about very hot, like if there's a bedroom with kind of a pitch ceiling, a lot of A-frame headphones and things like that? There are certain places, do we just want to set it on the wall as a little higher than a certain height, or?
So I know let me see if I can draw on this. So you're basically saying that the ceiling runs like that, correct? And then it's parallel, and then the bedroom door is located here. And then, so a location where you want to do it is again over the door around here, as I demoed on the door, because that's in case smoke comes in, it's going to come underneath the door or through the sides of the door, but there's going to be a smoke alarm there. That's going to detect those fumes, and it's going to go ahead and start beeping. Let's say if there's an existing smoke alarm, if there's an existing smoke alarm, you want to go ahead and remove that, and you want to go ahead and put the new alarm where the existing smoke alarm is. Because what happens is that a lot of residents say, all of this used to be white, and now it has a different color here. And they don't remove the smoke alarm, so then there's a white circle there. You want to go ahead and place the smoke alarm and cover that white circle, because it's you don't want to make it look bad. In case there's an existing hole like this, and the screw just goes in and out, it goes in and out and doesn't grab. There's these red things, and they're called anchors. So you want to go ahead and put an anchor inside, and this is where the hammer comes in handy when you need the anchors. So you want to go ahead and grab it and then push it in. So once the anchor is placed inside there, then you can go ahead and put your screw inside. And then the screw is not going to come out or go in. So from there, it's going to be fully tight, and you can go ahead and attach the ring. And that's our demo. Any questions?
For the drill, do you have the the clutch adjusted on that? Because I could see how in drywall, it'd be really easy, just even a slight touch would just spin the screw in the drywall.
Correct. So a lot of we don't really have them set at this time because we have a lot of backpacks. So we have hundreds of backpacks. So each team that go out, they usually adjust it to different levels. So, and as I was mentioning earlier, once you put all your equipment back, you want to have it organized. But sometimes that is not the case. So it's a lot of work, and we really don't know which ones have been adjusted and which ones haven't. But then we can go ahead and discuss about where it should be adjusted and where it should not. But most of these houses here are wood or drywall. Both? Okay. So usually with a drill, we really haven't had an issue where people have really gone through the drywall because usually there's
Not so
usually.
much there, you just strip the hole in the screw.
Correct. Yeah. So what happens is that usually what we do, like I said, you want to go ahead and leave the screw halfway in
Mhm.
and just tighten it a little bit. You don't really want to fully tighten it as long as the ring is fully intact. So let's say that's the small little gap you mentioned. So you want to go ahead and just put the ring over it through the small circle, and you really don't want to tighten it a lot. You want to go ahead and tighten it into the moment that it feels really solid. Yeah, I know what you're asking. That sometimes people just put them on and ask for it and just
Well,
continue
we
going.
guys really want it.
Yeah, we want to screw it in. Yeah. So so and this is part of the training that you don't really want to do that. You want to go ahead and insert it to the where it's really solid. And of course, right here it's a little bit difficult because it's a demo. It's a demo drywall, but once it's on the ceiling, it's going to be a little bit different.
You were gonna talk about the cottage cheese ceilings, it works exactly the same?
Yeah. So the the popcorn ceilings works this same exact way.
Okay.
But for that, you really want to use the goggles because you don't want any debris to go into your eyes. And you will also be getting a ladder. So you're going to have a small little step ladder where you can go ahead and use it to insert the smoke alarms. Something you don't want to do is carry a power tool, ice pick with you, marker and everything at once because it's just very difficult and it's also very dangerous because you have an ice pick that is pointing. You also have a drill and you don't want to cause any injuries. So for us, it's your safety.
Cork's a great idea.
You're better off because it would be so much easier instead of on the ceiling, to be doing it on the sidewall. Does it work better
They
one
both
way?
they both work great. It just depends on the height of the stepping stool. So if you really can't reach onto the ceiling, the best location to do it is you add the way. So if you can't really reach up here, if you can't really reach onto the ceiling, you can always put it on the door.
And so that's as effective. as-
Correct.
Okay.
But we kind of do recommend that you kind of
Right.
put it in the ceiling around the door. But if you really can't reach, which that is the case, it's going to be.
We have a lot of high ceilings in this area.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I said the door because it's very easy and it's faster compared to the ceilings. I know that because she mentioned that the ceilings are slanted, so there isn't really a way to. We don't really have a 20-foot ladder to reach all the way up to the top.
And are there any issues with doing this in apartments where the person is just a renter? Because the owner wouldn't know.
So each renter has the ability to install their own smoke alarms. So legally, each property owner has to have smoke alarms. So,
Right.
so
We're okay doing that.
correct, we're okay doing it, yes.
So essentially, the property owner is supposed to do it. If it's not done, then defaults to the renter.
Not necessarily, but the property owner, it does have to have smoke alarms. So
let's say I move into a house and my house doesn't have smoke alarms, and I keep on telling the owner, hey, install smoke alarms. I as for safety, I want to go ahead and buy some at the store and put them on myself, because it's the safety for my family. So, the property owners are obligated to put them because they are required by code. It depends which city, but majority of the time, they have to provide smoke alarms. And we are okay if they're residents of that property and there's somebody living there, we're okay installing smoke alarms there. Any more questions, concerns?
Does Red Cross cover liability if you slip and fall off your ladder and hurt yourself?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Yes.
All individuals and community organizations are covered under the Red Cross liability insurance.
Yes. And, that's our installation portion. And it's really important to have somebody, okay, last question, last thing is, let's say you run out of smoke alarms. What do? On the clipboard, you're gonna have a number there that you can contact the base camp. So let's say you don't have smoke alarms. You go ahead and call base camp and say, hey, I'm requesting for a drop off for smoke alarms. Then somebody will arrive to your location, drop you off more smoke alarms. So it's really important to have a base camp number, like that you can know, in case you need more smoke alarms, educational packets, documented packets. It's always best to have base camp contact.
Is there a sign up for the volunteers? You guys just sign a sheet on different volunteers in their areas, so you know where to send them out. If you guys are gonna be here for 4 days. After that, let's say signing, people in which areas they're in, and then they would contact the Indio County contact or the Roanoke County contact to get the information.
Right. So that's what we're planning on putting together after we finish the training here and the training in Indio tomorrow. We will get you guys' availability and basically put you in a spreadsheet. So as the appointments come in and we inquire about the availability of the residents, we can match up you guys with the residents' availability, and Kathy or John Shepherd and Inyo will be able to dispatch teams to those houses. Does that make sense?
How do you solicit the families, the residences that need this?
Well, we're having a booth at the Tri-County Fair, and what we do beforehand is we publicize it. We have people call into the hotline number. Or we've done it through Google Drive in the past, where people can go online and sign up for it. Different methods, whatever works best for the locals here is what we'll go with.
It was a really good deal, and obviously these are super.
Schools, I think, we tried to get flyers for the kids to take home in the schools, and that, at least in Los Angeles, it hasn't been as lucrative for us as either sending folks out to go door to door and advertise the program. Yeah, it's just manpower. You need a lot of manpower to do that.
You need to, because I've always had that.
Yeah.
Place ever since.
I agree. I'm gonna work on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then actually, because I moved here 22 years ago, and it was at Northridge.
Yeah.
I talked to the
That's a good point.
to try
It's
to
very
find out
important to have Spanish
so
speaking
isolated,
educators as
right?
well, so that's definitely what we need. Hopefully we can recruit some of those as
Fine.
well. We'll have Spanish speaking
But our
schools as well.
a million,
Yeah.
10,000 oaks
Yeah.
on communication.
So
And we were able.
it's really, we can tailor it to whatever works best for
Dialogue,
the
but not,
community.
Right.
It's
and
not-
I was
It's
triaged.
not cut and dry, it's
Right.
very
And so,
flexible.
yeah, it's good that needs to really be taken care of.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I mean, they're not legal living spaces. We will put them in there if there is
Do you want these back? or
people
is this for
identified
us?
that are living in that garage.
That's ours, right?
But-
Yeah, you can keep those. You can keep them.
Just in terms of
I had
if
two of
for our supplies.
Okay, we can
are
take
limited
that.
in
It
supplies.
was
I mean, there's not like, a,
class,
you know,
but if
reason
you
why
want to
you
hold
cannot.
on to them to
Just-
review it, that's
We're
totally
asking,
fine.
you know,
Oh,
we
okay.
have very limited numbers of smoke alarms, so we're limited to bedrooms.
Yeah, sure. Any extras we'll take.
Yeah.
I just thought maybe.
No reason, other than that, we have installed
we
those,
all done
like, obviously, you can imagine.
We're all
what I'm saying,
done. Thank you so much for
converted
coming.
garage.
Guys, nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you too.
Thanks for your time. I hope we can get this off.
Another
Yeah, I'm sure.
another last thing,
About Miss Ava.
another last thing that I want to mention
The last thing,
is that there's a lot of residents who are converting into tankless water heaters. And also, when there's a disaster, it's always best to have a tank water heater because at least you know you have 40 gallons of water inside your gallon heater that you can utilize. But unfortunately, now in modern society, there's a lot of residents who are going to tankless water heater. So whenever there's a disaster, sometimes water is not there. And having a tankless water heater, you know, you're not going to be having water there. So it's also something you want to recommend is, you know, always have a tank water heater and make sure it's strapped correctly onto the wall. And at least you have 60 gallons of water or 100 gallons of water.
Not many tankless ones here because the water's so cold.
that's the other
Winter time,
There's usually a typical drain, like just like a water spigot on the bottom of it. So you
Right,
can-
but then you need a hose it.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, you said tomorrow.